Aloha and welcome to Livable Hawaii Kaihui's show, Maunalua, East Oahu Community Groups Working Together. Our show today is the Big Tree Competition. I'm Natalie Iwasa, a member of the Hui, and I have with me a couple of guests. Nick?
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Gladly. I thought you were going to do that. My name is Nicholas Jolly. I am the Forestry Assistant for the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. And I'm also the coordinator for the Hawaii Big Tree Competition.
I'm Malia Nonbara. I'm the Forestry Management Liaison for the Division of Forestry and Wildlife.
Well, it's so nice to have you both here today. Thank you for coming. Malia, would you tell us a little bit about the organization you work for?
Yeah, so the Division of Forestry and Wildlife falls under the Department of Land and Natural Resources, which of course is under the state of Hawaii. We have 6 different programs that are within DOFA. Forestry is one of them. That's what Nick and I fall under. There's also wildlife. There's native ecosystem protection management, which includes our watershed partnerships, which are statewide. There's also our trail program called Na'ala. There's forest protection, which includes invasive species and fire. And then last is our education and outreach program.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And Nick, so you kind of fit into one niche that Malia mentioned, and what is that?
That would be the Hawaii Big Tree Competition.
And what is that?
Well, basically what it is a conservation movement to locate, appreciate, and protect the biggest tree species from across the United States. And for each of those species that are available on the National Register, they'd be crowned that species' national champion. And so by doing that, we raise awareness for those particular tree species and get public interest for conserving these species. And like I said, it's currently active across all 50 states. And the program has been running since the 1940s. And during that time, Hawaii participated. But we were mostly involved with Polynesian introduced and, not Polynesian introduced, but invasive tree species and species used for agroforestry purposes. But it was maybe about 10 years ago that we made the push under the direction of Sherry Mann to really emphasize our culturally significant and our valuable tree species in Hawaii. And so what we did was we had those introduced species removed from the list, and we focused on 21 native species. And so for the last 2 years, we've actually had 10 champions for those species.
Oh, that's very interesting. So I think you said 1940. This competition then has been going for
a little over 70 years now.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very interesting. So how does a tree become a champion?
Well, for a tree to become a champion, it needs to be nominated. And so what a person like I would do, since I'm the coordinator for the Big Tree program, is I accept nominations from the public. And when they think they have a tree from our list of eligible species, they'll contact me, and we will go out and measure the tree and factor it into a total point system. And so what we do when we're looking at a tree is we'll be taking into account, we'll measure the tree's height in feet, the circumference in inches, and the average crown spread, and we'll factor those together to give a tree's total points. And we'll compare that tree against others within the same species, and whichever has the more points would be the national champion. And there is a small buffer within that where if a tree is within 8 points of another tree, then they can be co-champions.
Oh, that's nice to make it fair all the way around.
Yeah, well, there's small variations in there that you have to take into account, so 8 points seems like a reasonable buffer.
So what is Big Tree Madness then?
Well, once every year that lines up with March Madness, if you're familiar with the basketball tournament, we hold Big Tree Madness. And what that does, it's sort of a fun way to draw attention to our national champions and also to sort of call attention to the state's individual programs. So unlike the Big Tree competition where it is within individual species competing against one another, here we have the most prominent trees from each state competing against the other states. So it'll begin with 16 states, and it narrows down through a bracketology until there's one champion.
Okay, so we actually have 2 different sets of rules that we're looking at for the trees.
Yes. Well, it's still based on a tree's total points. So within that, to be accepted into March Madness, it has to be a national champion already. But the voting is different, or how they decide is different, I should say. The voting is done online, and if you want to vote for our current Hawaii champions, you can log on to our DLNR website and vote there. And it's done by the most votes total for a champion.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's sort of a poll-based survey.
Going back to the way that people nominate the trees, do you have lists of the acceptable trees on your website, or how do people even know about this program?
To hear about the program, they could log on to our DLNR website, and I believe we have a link of that posted now. Well, we do have the link, and then you will navigate through forestry to the forestry page, go to the forestry homepage from there, and then if you scroll to the bottom, there should be a link to the Big Tree Competition page, and within there we have the complete list of eligible species. And at this point, there's 21 different species, and we're always pushing to get more native and Polynesian species added to the list, but right now we're at 21.
Okay, so those 21 are in Hawaii. They're not necessarily what you would find on the mainland, correct?
No, that is correct.
And then whatever national champion Hawaii has would go in competition against the other different species in the mainland. Is that correct?
During March Madness, yes, but not within the individual Big Tree competition.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of invasive species that we have to deal with, and unfortunately one of those that we have here that pertains to our national champion is the coconut rhinoceros beetle. Malia, can you tell us some information about that?
Yes, so our champion that we submitted to the Big Tree Madness competition is Coco, which can be found in Hawaii Kai. It's a coconut tree. The coconut rhinoceros beetle was actually found in Hawaii in December. It's a scarab beetle, and we've been partnering with the Department of Agriculture as well as the University of Hawaii and a few other partners in surveying for this beetle and also any damage done by this beetle. The reason why it is so dangerous to our coconut trees here is that it will bore through the trunk and as well as the new leaves, and essentially can lead to the death of the coconut tree.
Right, now I understand these are pretty big beetles, aren't they?
Right, I would say they're probably about an inch in length. They're called the coconut rhinoceros beetle because they are known to have a horn on the front of their nose. So they are quite large.
Do they bite at all?
I think that they like to be very specific to the coconut trees here. I don't think that they are a hazard to people, but if people do see them, they should report it to our invasive species groups.
So do you have pictures of those beetles on your website as well?
Yes, so if you go to our DOFA website, one of the first pictures you'll see is of the coconut rhinoceros beetle, and there's also the capability to have weekly or monthly updates on what we are doing to protect our coconut trees from this beetle.
So is it just restricted to coconut trees then, or do they like other plants and trees?
I think they just like the coconut trees here, but we do have a many other wide variety of invasive species that are insects or trees that are devastating to our native plants here, just because our native plants aren't evolved to be competing with them or to survive these pests.
And this particular beetle, how could somebody tell, I mean, without seeing the beetle, how could they tell that the beetle has been around?
You'll usually see the damage because it will bore through the tree. So if you see a very large hole that's going directly through the top of the coconut tree or through the trunk, I think that's the best way to know if there's a coconut rhinoceros beetle nearby.
And you also mentioned, though, that they eat the leaves, correct? So
The new leaves.
the new leaves. So if somebody saw that the leaves were eaten on the edges.
And they'll form also a unique V shape if the leaves have been eaten. And then they grow out. So you'll kind of see, it will be later than if you saw the hole right at the beginning. But that's another way for people to know.
Okay, well, good. We need to make sure that we control that and don't want that to spread like we've had the coqui frog
Right.
going from island to island, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, well, so you mentioned the national champion that we have, Coco, which I understand is the tallest coconut tree in Hawaii, correct?
Correct.
Would you like to share some information about Coco?
Gladly. So Coco is our current national champion for the coconut palm, the Cocos nucifera, and it is located in Hawaii Kai at Havea Heiau Complex. And it really is, I believe we have a few photos now of this palm and the complex.
And so what's special about the area that this tree is in?
Well, it is managed by a community group called Livable Hawaii Kai Hui, and they are a community-managed Hawaiian cultural heritage preserve. And what's interesting about this site is basically the history of the area. Cocoa, it's part of the coconut grove there. It's an ancient coconut grove. That's what's allowed these species to grow so tall. And within that same complex, there are agricultural terraces, there are burial sites, there's a spring-fed well that was also on the site. So it's really an important linkage to Hawaiian ancestry and also for the community to realize the benefits of preserving these sites. Yeah, and it really is. It's very remarkable for that species. The average coconut palm is maybe 30, 60 feet tall, usually not more than 100, and a circumference of maybe 12 inches, and this one is about 113 feet tall with a 13-inch circumference, so it really is a very large tree.
Yeah, and we could see from the pictures how tall it was.
Yep.
It just kind of stuck out from all the other coconut trees around it.
Mm-hmm.
So have you visited the area?
I have visited the area, and it's really great work that they're doing out there, all of the kiabe that they're removing. It's really exposing the site for what it is, the important archaeological site that it should be.
Right, and Malia, what would you like to say about Coco?
Coco's very interesting and important to me personally. I was in the Big Tree Coordinator position a few years ago and was the original person to come out and measure Coco. And so for me to see that site transform has been incredible. I remember not even being able to see the tree from the street. It was all very dense and you couldn't see the wetland at all. And so to go back there now and see Coco clearly from the street for the public to view, see the site being restored, it's pretty amazing.
And you mentioned earlier that Coco went against another coconut tree in the state and pulled ahead of it.
Yes, so Coco was actually one of our first trees to dethrone another one of our trees. Because you are looking for the tallest or the biggest of each species, we did have 2 coconut trees that were co-champions from Molokai that had been submitted the year before. And then Coco ended up dethroning them. And so to have that tree kind of take over another one, it was kind of fun for me because I started out measuring those ones on Molokai and then ended my internship and time as the Big Tree Coordinator with measuring the new champion, Coco.
Interesting. So how long does a tree remain a champion then?
A tree will remain champion until it is dethroned. So you hope that a tree survives. I know that there have been champions that have been dethroned because they died or because of disease or they just are so old and they'll break. So they'll continue on as long as nobody else finds one that's bigger.
Interesting. So now Coco is actually in this Tree Madness competition with trees from all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to us a little bit about that process and the other trees that it's come up against?
I can do that for you, yes. Well, it starts out with 16 tree species chosen by American Forest to participate in the program. And from there, they are placed against each other in a bracket, and where it's voter-based to narrow it down to one champion, which will be crowned the ultimate Big Tree champion from across the United States.
Okay, so you mentioned there were 16 trees, and I looked at the website American Forest, which is a charitable organization, correct? A 501c3?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really interesting, the variety. what do you see people doing so that their particular tree wins? Have you noticed anything really special about that?
I can't say so much for other programs, but as far as we're concerned, it's mostly been word of mouth, communicating with others in the DLNR community to really just sort of rally everyone behind this voting process to get the most number of votes that we possibly can.
Okay, so people can vote from all over the United States, and they can vote for any tree that they would like.
Correct, yeah, you're not limited to your own state for voting, and you can vote multiple times too from different IP addresses.
Oh.
So it's a little loophole in there.
Okay, so a little trick.
Yeah.
One of the trees that Coco came up against recently was in Utah? Utah, and that was a
Juniper.
juniper.
Correct.
Now, juniper, I thought, was a very interesting looking tree. Would you tell us a little bit about that one?
That one was, it was from Utah. It was situated kind of idyllic for a picture if you're going up against others and showing a picture and trying to get votes. So it was a big competition for us to win against Utah. That tree was, I believe, 1,500 years old and was set up on a cliffside with the blue sky behind it. A little bit gnarled and worn down, I would say, but it's still a very beautiful tree.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because it was so wide. It wasn't tall, but it was really very wide
Yes.
and very unique looking. So that says a lot about the Hawaii team and Coco.
It was a very nice tree, so much so that I won't say who, but one prominent DOFA community member also decided to make one vote for that tree due to its particular appeal, but I won't say who.
She has a fondness for dead trees or dead-looking trees.
Oh. How many levels then has Coco already gone through?
We're actually entering into the final 4 round of voting tomorrow. Yes, going up
Okay.
against Texas.
So the prior vote with Utah was not the first one? Or what? How many were there altogether?
So far, we've done the round of 16, which we won. I can't remember which state it was against. And then Utah was next. And so then we'll face up against Texas. And then the last one, if we make it past Texas, will be the final competition. So there's 4 total.
So how are these brackets determined? Is it like other sports games, or how does it work?
It's not like other sports games to where you had to win anything to get into the 16. I think it was chosen based on the story and the significance of the sites that those trees are located on. I believe more so than any other part of the Big Tree program, this is focused on the story of those trees.
Oh, interesting. So the fact that it was in the complex there
Yes.
and the cultural significance of the area.
It's definitely playing a prominent role in that, which was a great opportunity that we've had it's sort of everything is aligned to where we have the opportunity to promote what the complex is doing and all the progress that they've made there, and at the same time draw attention to our native species.
Oh, very interesting. So what else about the program or the competition would you like to have people understand?
We can talk a little bit more about the site that it's located on. Another important part of the area is that the unique refuge that it provides in Hawaii Kai. It's located, if you're familiar with it, right on Hawaii Kai Drive in a very developed area of eastern Oahu. And the property actually, maybe within the last few years, was threatened by development, and the community rallied together, emphasized the role that they care for that area, and was able to have it transferred into the nonprofit's ownership so it can be preserved in perpetuity. And it's home to, aside from the tree species, it's home to the Hawaiian moorhen and the Hawaiian dragonfly as well. So it's a unique area to serve as sort of a habitat corridor for native Hawaiian species in an otherwise fragmented development.
Right, so yeah, it's got a unique position in the community. And the wetland area, as I understand it, is also coming back, and species that weren't seen for many years are now coming back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think We were just told that there were 5 baby little moorhens that were hanging out around the wetland. So it kind of just shows that when you put the effort and the energy into protecting these areas and you restore them to what they once were, these native species will come back to it and really just flourish.
And the moorhen, can you explain, what does that bird look like?
I believe it is, I have a hard time because the coot looks very similar. It's black, it's smaller than a duck, and it's either a red bill on its nose or a white one. Red. The red one.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting.
Mhm.
And then, are you aware of any other species that have come back in the area?
I am not aware. I know there's also a heron that calls the wetland its home.
Okay. And I think they're also working on some landscaping and putting in some other trees that
Yep.
naturally would grow there.
Yeah.
Sorry. And it goes to show you that however much we think we know about it, I feel that there's still so much we can learn from the area. I mean, I'm subscribed to Sam's email list of updates, and I feel like it's almost once a week he's finding a new terrace on the site, a new ramp. They're constantly expanding the coconut grove, so it's a growing community there.
And which list is this that you're subscribed to?
Oh, it's just an email list.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Is that information then put on the forestry website, or?
I believe it's something that would be more through the Livable
Oh.
Hawaii Kaihui site.
Okay,
It's
so it would be
the
on their
progress
website.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the program or the competition?
I could go a little more into what the state does
Sure.
or what the forestry program does. So the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, as I mentioned before, has the 6 different programs, and then Nick and I are part of the forestry program. And what we do at the state there is kind of, there's 2 components to it. So there's the forest reserves that we'll manage for the public to use for recreation, such as hunting, hiking, or if they want to collect resources from the forest reserves. And then on the other side of things, we also have the private landowner assistance programs that are available to private landowners interested in doing better forestry management on their properties. They're able to get some assistance from the state. And 2 of those that we work on a lot are the Forest Stewardship Program and also the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program.
Interesting. So this is for private owners. I mean, on Oahu, I wouldn't think that we even really have very much forestry, I mean, other than what's in the ridges. So are there like particular areas that you work in more than others, or?
It is, these programs are open statewide. We do have a lot of people interested from the Big Island just because there are larger landowners there. We can work for the Forest Stewardship Program. There's a requirement of at least 5 acres. And it's not usually protecting forests, it's usually restoring an area and reforesting it. So if you have any degraded ranch land or any large properties that people wanted help.
So I think it was on the Big Island in the Hamakua area where they put eucalyptus trees, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so on that coast there's some, I think there's private land that has a lot of the eucalyptus. I think Kamehameha Schools has that. But we also have the Waikea Timber Management Area that has some eucalyptus planted in there. And those timber management areas were set up a long time ago to provide a funding resource for the state to help us become more sustainable in our timber production and any wood products that we may need. So they're currently being managed, not too much in there right now about trying to harvest them or anything, but it's definitely set up for the state to have a resource for the public.
Interesting. So, I mean, I don't think most people are aware of that unless that's some kind of area that they work in. Now, going back to Coco and the competition, what are the next steps? You said that this is the final round for the tree, is that correct?
It is the final 4.
The
So
final
there'd
4.
be, after this round, which takes place on April 3rd, there'll be one more round of voting after that.
Okay, so I think this show actually will, be aired, unfortunately, after the voting for April 3rd, and then there's one more round after that?
Yes, to be decided.
Oh, to be decided. Okay, so what are we have about a minute left. What are the trees that are, the 4 that are left, do you know?
I couldn't say for certain which are the other 4. I've been sort of focusing on cocoa here, but I will touch on one point within the last minute, is that, as you said earlier, you wouldn't think that there would be much opportunity for forestry within Honolulu and the urban area, and that it would be confined mostly to the ridges. And that's a big part of what we're doing at this site and others like it, is emphasizing the urban forestry element. And we actually have a part of the Division of Forestry called Kaulunani that focuses on educating the public and promoting healthy trees in the urban environment for the many benefits that they can provide to our environment. So it's another important aspect of what we're doing in this area.
Well, interesting. It's been very educational for me to have you here, and we're excited for cocoa and what it means for the Havea Heiau complex area and the wetland area.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And being part of the Livable Hawaii Kaihui monthly show, East Oahu community groups working together. And we encourage everybody to get out there and vote for cocoa. And would you want to mention your website one more time for people so they can check?
I'd like to mention that even though the Big Tree Madness happens at one specific time of year, we're always accepting nominations for the Big Tree program. So at any point in the year when you think you have a very large, recognizable native or Polynesian introduced species, you can contact us by following the link on our website.
Okay, and that link is actually on the screen right now, and we thank you for joining us. Thank you.